In 1913, a strange letter arrived at a home in Cambridge, England. It was sent by a 23-year-old accounting clerk working at a port trust office in Madras, India. The writer stated plainly that he had no university education. The recipient was G.H. Hardy, an elite mathematician at Trinity College. Hardy spent his life within the formal, highly structured halls of Western academia. When he reviewed the 9 pages of enclosed equations, his initial reaction was pure suspicion. This visualization demonstrates one of the letter's most jarring claims. It suggests that if you take the infinite sum of all positive integers, 1 plus 2 plus 3, continuing forever, the total resolves to negative 1/12. To a Cambridge fellow, this sounded absurd. In professional mathematics, you must show the step-by-step documentation detailing exactly how you arrived at a result. The clerk provided virtually none. The formulas were simply listed out. Yet, as Hardy and his colleagues studied the pages, they recognized an undeniable brilliance. The letter posed a difficult question. Could an isolated clerk, completely disconnected from the established scientific method, bypass traditional training and arrive at advanced mathematical truths? The sender was Srinivasa Ramanujan. Raised in a modest Brahmin family in South India, Ramanujan was a quiet child who viewed his entire existence through the lens of numbers. At 16, he acquired a book containing over 5,000 equations. The text was over a decade old and designed mostly for cramming for exams, offering almost no explanations. Without a teacher, Ramanujan treated every formula as a puzzle, reverse engineering solutions and developing entirely original methods. His focus became absolute. While enrolled in college, Ramanujan ignored every subject except mathematics. He failed his exams, lost his scholarship, and dropped out of the formal educational system. For Ramanujan, a devout Hindu, these formulas were not human inventions. He believed they were direct revelations from his family goddess, Namagari. To him, an equation had no meaning unless it expressed a thought of God. He had filled worn notebooks with insights that could advance human understanding. But to share them, Ramanujan would have to leave his home and travel across the world, integrating into an intensely rigid, secular academic system that stood in direct opposition to his own worldview. Ramanujan arrived in London in 1914. He traded the quiet rhythms of South India for a fast, loud metropolis of nearly 5 million people. He soon moved to Cambridge, a sprawling Gothic fortress of academia. Here, he worked directly with Hardy, a man who possessed no religious faith and demanded absolute, uncompromising logic from every theorem. Their daily sessions required Ramanujan to alter his entire approach. Hardy insisted on rigorous, documented proofs. Ramanujan had to suppress the spontaneous, intuitive leaps that defined his genius, forcing his divine revelations into the strict language of European mathematics. This chart shows the calculation of pi. For centuries, infinite sums like the Leibniz formula bounced wildly before slowly nearing the true value. By contrast, Ramanujan's expression correctly identifies the first 8 decimal places of pi on the very first term. The friction between Ramanujan's intuitive leaps and Hardy's structured editing produced mathematical miracles. It demonstrated that Ramanujan's raw insight, once translated into a format the scientific community could process, was undeniable. Just as their collaboration took off, World War I erupted. The conflict drained Cambridge of its students and professors, plunging Ramanujan into profound isolation. He struggled to survive the freezing English climate, occasionally sleeping in his overcoat because he did not know how to properly use the blankets on his bed. Bound by strict caste rules, he required a specific vegetarian diet. With wartime rationing in effect, ingredients became scarce, and he often survived on little more than rice and lemon juice. Cut off from his family, his wife, and his culture, Ramanujan fell severely ill. He spent the next 2 years cycling through nursing homes and sanitariums, battling fevers, pain, and a deep, consuming depression. Driven entirely to despair, Ramanujan stood on a London Underground platform. As a train approached, he threw himself onto the tracks. A guard spotted him and pulled the emergency switch, stopping the train just feet away. Attempted suicide was a crime in England. At the time, Hardy was called to Scotland Yard and used his academic influence to convince the police to release him without charges. Ramanujan survived the tracks, but the physical and emotional cost of adapting to a foreign world and translating his mind into an alien system had systematically broken him. While recovering, Ramanujan received news that validated his journey. He was elected a Fellow of the Royal Society, securing his place alongside scientific giants like Isaac Newton and Charles Darwin. During one of Hardy's hospital visits, the English mathematician casually mentioned that he had arrived in a taxi with the number 1729. Hardy remarked that it seemed like a rather dull number. Ramanujan immediately corrected him. He explained that 1729 is actually fascinating in two different ways, as 1 cubed plus 12 cubed, and as 9 cubed plus 10 cubed. Even as his physical health deteriorated, Ramanujan's mind never stopped working. He continuously perceived the hidden numerical architecture of the universe with a clarity that eluded the most highly educated academics of his time. In 1919, he finally sailed back to the warmth of South India. He returned as an internationally recognized mathematician, but his body was failing from his years in Europe. Bedridden and in constant agony, he refused to stop working. While his wife placed hot towels on his chest and fed him small portions of rice by hand, he feverishly documented a final set of equations he called Mach theta functions. On April 26, 1920, Srinivasa Ramanujan fell unconscious and passed away. He was 32 years old. Decades after his death, mathematicians are still unpacking his final notebooks. Today, physicists rely on the equations he scribbled on his deathbed to explore the behavior of black holes and the mechanics of string theory. Ramanujan left behind a profound legacy, but his story remains a tragedy of isolation. It serves as a reminder that the world's most brilliant minds rarely fit neatly into the structures we build for them. When confronted with true genius, institutions must learn to adapt and expand, rather than demanding that a rare mind break itself just to be understood.